Hello, dear ones. This is Justin Peters at the Shepherd's Conference, and I just wanted to take just a couple of minutes here to share with you the importance of having a plurality of elders as your polity as far as your church structure goes. Now, I get it. I come from a Southern Baptist background, born, reared into a Southern Baptist church, went to a Southern Baptist seminary, got 2 degrees, so I understand that a plurality of elders is kind of a foreign concept to most Southern Baptists. It certainly was to me. But once I saw it in Scripture, then you're just overwhelmed with the preponderance of the biblical evidence and support for this model. One of the weaknesses of the more congregational-led church structure is that your church basically operates as kind of a democracy. You know, if over half of the congregation votes for this or this direction, that's what we do. If they don't, we won't do it, that kind of a thing. And, that works great for a country. It works great for a political system, but the church is different. The church is not a democracy. The church is a unique institution created by Christ, headed by Christ. He created it. He died for it. He gets to determine how the church is run. We don't. It's not up to us. It's not up to you. It's not up to me. And God has not left us uninformed about how churches are to be structured. Churches are to be led by a plurality, meaning more than one, a plurality of biblically qualified men who are elders. They are to be the spiritual leaders in the church. Deacons do have a place, and a deacon, that's an office in the church as well, but a deacon is a servant, held to much the same qualifications as an elder, but a deacon is a servant in the church. They serve the physical needs of the church body. They don't lead the church spiritually. The elders do that. There's a number of passages that show this. I would turn your attention to Acts chapter 16, Acts chapter 20, Titus chapter 1 as just a few. But I want to read to you one verse from Acts 14, verse 23. And this is just kind of a good synopsis. It puts it all in one verse. So Acts chapter 14, verse 23 says, "And when they had appointed elders for them in every church, having prayed with fasting, they commended them to the Lord in whom they had believed." Notice that the text says they had appointed elders, plural, in every church. So every single church that was planted in the apostolic age had elders. More than one elder and these men served as the spiritual leaders of the church. A plurality as an evangelist, let me tell you, I have traveled now, by God's grace, all over the world. I have preached, I wish I knew in how many churches I've preached. Multiple hundreds of churches I've preached in all around the world. And as I do this, and as I've talked to pastors and I've heard their stories, I've heard what they've been through, you just are overwhelmed by the wisdom of God in structuring His church this way, by being led by a plurality of biblically qualified men, elders. Let me say quickly that the term elder and pastor are interchangeable. Okay, elder, pastor, and shepherd. These terms are used interchangeably in the New Testament, especially in the book of Acts. They're used interchangeably. So in other words, an elder is a pastor. A pastor is an elder. A lot of people think, well, the pastor he's the head guy, and if you're going to have elders, they're kind of somehow underneath the pastor. But that's not how the Bible describes it. Elders and pastors, they're held to a certain amount of biblical qualifications: husband of one wife, able to teach, not addicted to wine, not lovers of money, all of these things, hospitable, temperate. And each elder should have the same amount of authority, if you will, within a church as does any other elder. For example, our church has elders. Now, there is one elder who is the primary preaching elder, the man who takes the lead role in most of the preaching on most Sundays, unless he's sick or unless he's, on a trip. He's the one in the pulpit, so he's the primary preaching and teaching elder, but he doesn't have any more authority than do any of the other elders serving in the church. They have a shared responsibility and shared authority. This is the wisdom of God, because it provides shared responsibility, it provides shared accountability. There's oversight, there's accountability within that group of elders, and that is how a church is to be structured and run. And this provides not only protection for your pastor, but also accountability. And this is how God has ordained it. So I know that's a concept that's foreign to most in the Southern Baptist Convention, or maybe fresh out of the SBC. But please do consult the scriptures, search the scriptures to see if these things are so. I would encourage you. Go to Acts 14, go to Acts 16, go to Acts 20, Titus chapter 1, other places you see this. This is God's design. So I hope this is helpful for you, just a very bird's eye view of a biblical plurality of elders. And another point of this is, one thing I would encourage you to do is that the way your Constitution is structured right now is unbiblical. It actually prevents elders or potential elders, which you, Lord willing, will soon have in place. It prevents them from, it prevents you from even having elders. It prevents them from doing what God has called them to do. So I would encourage you in short order, as of like yesterday, get rid of the Constitution that you have, because it's not biblical, and anything that's not biblical is not honoring to Christ. So it doesn't matter if it's going to make someone mad. You should be much more concerned about making Christ mad. This is His bride. It's not ours. It's His bride.